The envelope didn't look like trouble when it arrived. Thick ivory stock, the kind with weight you feel in your fingers before opening. It slid through my mail slot that morning while I was folding warm towels, the air smelling of lavender and dryer sheets. That ordinary moment was the last one before everything cracked. The return address read Connecticut Department of Health Vital Records Division. At first I thought it was bureaucratic noise, some form I'd forgotten, until I saw my full name typed across the front, Claire Elaine Whitmore. I hadn't used that name since leaving Stamford 3 years ago. I sat at the kitchen counter, moved aside a chipped coffee mug, and slit the envelope with a butter knife. Inside was my death certificate. Blue ink. Raised seal. Claire Elaine Whitmore. Date of death, June 12, 2020. Cause, accidental drowning. Location, Tulum, Mexico. My hands went cold. Not the sharp cold of shock, but the slow creep of something far worse, realization. The birth date was mine. The social security number. Even the last known address matched my old apartment on Water Street. This wasn't a mistake. Someone had worked very hard to make sure I was officially dead. I called the only person I still trusted. Maya Greer, my former roommate from Parsons, now a legal consultant in New Haven. Sharp. Unshakable. Claire? I just got a death certificate, I said. In my name. Silence. Then her breath changed. Filed in Hartford. June 2020. Another pause. Longer. You need to come in, she said quietly. Now. I stared at the envelope. Not just a document, a message. And I hadn't even gotten to the part naming who filed it. Mexico wasn't my idea. It was my father's. Russell Whitmore never yelled. He didn't need to. He had a way of making suggestions that settled like commands. You need space, Claire, he'd said in May 2020, a few months into the pandemic. I'd been freelancing in New York, trying to build my own design firm after walking away from Whitmore & Sons, the family real estate empire. Take a sabbatical. Clear your head. We'll cover it. I should have known. The flight to Tulum was quiet. The hotel, elegant, minimal, too perfect, felt like a breath at first. Then my bank card failed. The bank swore there was no issue on their end. A local glitch, they said. By day 3, my phone stopped working. The SIM card failed. The hotel manager suddenly couldn't find my reservation. Politely, firmly, I was asked to leave. When I finally found Wi-Fi at a cafe, I'd been off-grid for 7 days. No messages from my family. No missed calls. No "are you okay?" I sent emails. Texted Maya. Even messaged my sister Ivy, just a dot and a question mark. Nothing. That's when something inside me folded. Not shattered. Just bent inward, like a bridge under too much weight. I booked a flight to Houston, then to a friend's apartment in Portland. I didn't tell anyone, not because I was hiding, but because they'd already stopped looking. For years, I told myself it was miscommunication. Maybe they thought I needed more space. Maybe I'd made it too easy to be forgotten. But now, death certificate in hand, the truth was undeniable. They hadn't just forgotten me. They'd erased me. And they'd started the moment I left the country. Caleb Dawson's office smelled the same as it had when I was 19, dried paper and peppermint oil. The man in the grey suit who'd handled my grandmother's estate looked up when I entered. "Claire," he said. In the flesh. I stayed standing. He gestured to a chair anyway. I placed the death certificate on his desk. He read it slowly, face unreadable. "I never believed it," he said finally. But I also never had proof otherwise. "I'm here now," I said. "And I need to know what they've taken." He opened a leather folder, edges softened by time. Inside were copies of my grandmother's trust. Elaine Margot Whitmore, a founder of Whitmore & Sons, and the only person in that family who ever saw me as more than an accessory. She left you her personal estate, Caleb said. $6 million, tax optimized, plus the Vermont property. But there were conditions. He paused. You must be legally alive at the time of transfer, and you must not be involved with the family business. That sounds like her, I said. She thought being born a Whitmore was burden enough. He nodded. There's one more thing. He slid another document toward me. Clause 17, Dormant Status Provision. If the beneficiary was presumed dead or failed to respond to probate summons within 3 years of the grantor's death, the estate reverted to the residual Whitmore Trust. Deadline, May 27, 2024. I did the math. 92 days. That's how long I had left. If I didn't reverse the death certificate, restore my legal identity, and validate the inheritance by then, everything would legally belong to my father and brother. This wasn't just revenge. It was theft. And they'd almost gotten away with it. The second envelope arrived by hand, cream-colored, embossed with a Connecticut probate court seal. It came at 9 a.m. while I was adding sticky notes to a timeline Maya and I had drafted the night before. Inside, petition for emergency conservatorship. Filed by Russell Whitmore and Jacob Whitmore. Grounds, delusional behavior. Paranoia. Emotional instability. Inability to manage financial decisions. A note in my father's handwriting was clipped to the front, clinical as a lab report. We believe Claire is a danger to her own legacy. Her refusal to acknowledge reality is affecting the family's integrity. I didn't laugh. Didn't cry. I folded the document twice, set it on the table, then walked to the kitchen sink and threw up. Not because I believed any of it. Because I recognized every word. They weren't inventing new lies. They were weaponizing old ones. Maya arrived 20 minutes later, took one look at my face, and didn't ask. She scanned the petition and exhaled through her nose. We'll need your medical records. I kept the originals. Good. We'll also need a counterstatement from the clinic in Mexico. I already called. They're overnighting it. Her mouth twitched, half smile, half frown. You're good at this. No, I said. I just know how far they'll go. We worked in silence, labeling every interaction, every document. We weren't preparing for a court case. We were preparing for war. The storage unit was in Bridgeport. Walker Storage Facility, Unit C21. 3rd floor. No cameras. No windows. The kind of place designed to be forgotten. Eli Martinez, the forensic accountant Maya had brought, carried a hard case with cables, drives, and a scanner that looked more military than legal. 2 hours, he said. In and out. The air inside was thick with dust and toner. The stairwell groaned under our weight, each step sounding like trespass. Unit C21 had no lock, just a broken latch and silence. Eli went straight to a dented file cabinet. 5th drawer down. A red folder labeled Archive 9, Client Risk Reports. Inside. Loan agreements with Eclipse Finance, forged with my name. Transfers to Legacy Recovery LLC, a Delaware shell company. A passport scan that looked real except for one detail, the expiration date. I'd never renewed it that year. Here, Eli said, pointing. Borrower, Claire E. Whitmore. Amount, $2.4 million. Jurisdiction, British Virgin Islands. He flipped the page. A memo from my brother Jacob to the family's corporate counsel. Subject, Phase 2, discredit plus invalidate. If she resurfaces, we go psychiatric. We already have Alan on standby. Alan. Dr. Alan Kersner, the name on the fake psych evil. My breath caught. Not from fear, but from the quiet, sickening confirmation. This had never been about concern. It had always been about containment. The rain the next morning was light but steady, turning the courthouse steps into mirrors. I saw myself in each one, black coat, hair tied back, eyes steady. The courtroom hushed when I entered. Phones rose. Whispers followed. That's her. At the door stood my father in a navy suit, my brother Jacob pacing beside him. My mother, Charlotte, stood a step behind, pearl earrings, grey trench, not a wrinkle out of place. She looked at me. Didn't blink. Didn't speak. Then, soft and cold. Claire. Not you're alive. Not how. Just my name, like it had never been missing. I walked past them into the courtroom. The judge, a woman with steel grey hair and square glasses, listened as Maya and Caleb laid out the evidence. The forged death certificate. The fake psych evil. The shell companies. The $2.4 million loan tied to a passport I'd never renewed. Then it was Ivy's turn. She approached the stand, a manila envelope clutched to her chest. Her voice shook only once. I found this in Dad's office, she said. They weren't worried she was unstable. They were worried she'd come back. She handed the judge an email thread between my father and their lawyer. Subject, if she resurfaces. The judge read it in silence, then looked at me. Miss Whitmore, she said, do you wish to address the court? I stood. I didn't die, I said. I disappeared because silence was the only way I knew to survive a family that couldn't stand my voice. But I came back. Not for money. Not for revenge. Just for something simple, the truth with my name on it. The room held its breath. The judge nodded. Motion granted. Identity reinstated. All estate transfers suspended pending federal investigation. This court recognizes Claire Elaine Whitmore as legally alive and in full capacity. The gavel fell. I didn't look at them when I left. They didn't reach for me either. 6 months later, I opened the doors to a place called the Whitmore Room. I didn't keep the name because I forgave them. I kept it so they'd never be able to pretend I didn't exist. It wasn't much, a converted walk-up in New Haven. 3 rooms, 1 coffee machine, and a wall of corkboard where survivors posted their truths on yellow sticky notes. He said I imagined it. They told me I should be grateful. I believed them until now. Most ended with no punctuation, just open wounds turned outward so they could finally breathe. The work wasn't glamorous. Legal aid. Resource matching. Quiet advocacy for people erased by systems meant to protect them. Not all of them had families like mine. Some had worse. But we shared one thing. We were all alive. And we weren't letting anyone write us out again. On the morning of our first workshop, a package arrived. No return address. Grey paper, hand-tied with a ribbon I hadn't seen since childhood. Inside. A flat portfolio. No note. Just a sketch, the blazer I designed at 24, the one I thought I'd lost in Mexico. The edges were worn, the corners smudged with ink. But it was mine. Only one thing had changed, a handwritten line at the bottom in a script I hadn't seen in months. You were always meant to stand. Mom. I stared at it for a long time. I didn't cry. I didn't smile. Some wounds don't bleed. They just harden into quiet resolve. That night, I opened a new sketchbook. Not for fashion. For a blueprint. A second shelter. Legal clinic on site. Kitchen facing the street. I labeled each room not with numbers, but with names. Clarity. Shelter. Anchor. Rise. I wasn't going back. I wasn't building to remember them. I was building so no one else would have to disappear to survive. I wasn't unstable. I was inconvenient. And they needed that gone. If you've ever been erased just to keep someone else comfortable, I see you.